The advent of Christianity in Ibadan marked the beginning of a significant era. The light of the gospel was kindled, and in its wake, St. David's Kudeti and other churches were birthed to life.
It was our joy, láti mọ Kudeti. Well, we will walk from here to Ogunpa, láti lọ wo English service ní ìrọ̀lẹ́ Sundays. Àrẹ̀mọ òun náà ń dàgbà lọ́hùn, Yémétú níbi tí ẹ̀ lóríṣiríṣi, tó gbogbo ẹ̀ là ń yí, but here was our base. Ibi sì ni ìyá ìjọ.
St. David's Church, as the oldest Anglican church, provided very good leadership for the churches, the Anglican churches in Ibadan.
Kudeti is the base of Christianity in Ibadan land and this part of Yoruba land, except Abeokuta, Lagos and Badagry.
Let us worship the Lord, the redeemed of the Lord. Let us praise the Lord, the purchased by the blood. Let us sing to God, who joy belongs. Ibadan serves the saints, shout hallelujah. The joy of the Lord we bring, praises to Jesus we ring. For the joy of the Lord is our strength. Shout for joy, shout for joy, shout for joy, shout for joy, for the living God is the one we serve. Shout for joy, shout for joy, shout for joy, shout for joy. Ibadan serves our saints, shout hallelujah.
In the year 1851, when Ibadan started to emerge as a relatively populated city and the commercial nerve center of the Yoruba people, a German missionary, Reverend David Hindra, who had taken a missionary vocation from Christian Missionary Society, CMS, London, came to Ibadan with 5 other missionaries to explore prospects for the propagation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. History reveals that before this period, Ibadan was a rallying point for Yoruba warriors and a melting pot of idol worshippers and ritualists. However, when David Hindra and his team came from Oshiele, Abeokuta, where they had earlier settled, Ibadan indigents, in their typical hospitable manner, received them with wide open arms. Other missionaries that accompanied David Hindra in his journey were Mr. Daniel Olubi, the Yoruba interpreter and later the first indigenous Anglican priest. There was also Mr. James Ojo Okusende, Mr. Daniel Marsh, Mr. Charles Phillips, Mr. Darley, and a horse on which David Hindra rode. Thus, the famous saying that a horse was the 7th of 6 people that brought Christianity to Ibadan.
The popular saying that ẹṣin sì keje ló mú gbàgbọ́ wọ̀lú Ìbàdàn, that means 6 human beings and a horse.
As the gospel was growing in Ibadan, the need for a congregational worship center became expedient. And so, St. David's Kudeti came into being, and the first Sunday service was held under a shed at Wasini, very close to the present site of the church, on the 1st of May, 1853. Thereafter, the first confirmation service was held on November 12, 1854. And the following year, on the 15th of June, 1855, the first church bell was installed, while the first Christian wedding was conducted on August 13, 1855.
Starting from St. David's Kudeti, doing a pioneering job for evangelism and missionary work apparently is not an easy job, especially for a foreigner who wasn't all that adapted to our culture, our language, our environment. So all these areas goes a long way to say that he has done quite a lot of exploits.
A historical monument worthy of mention in the annals of St. David's history is this mission house where David Hindra resided with his wife, Anna. The building is the first-story building in southwest Nigeria and the second in Nigeria.
The building is so historical in the sense that there used to be a movable steps, a movable staircase. When Hindra was about to go out, he would throw in the movable staircase, so he would climb down. Then by the time he came back, he would move up and remove the movable staircase. So it's become difficult for maybe for security reasons. So you'll be wondering how Imbo is upstairs without the staircase.
By the time I will come to join the staff in 62, so I had no other place to live than in Hindra's house, Tuambi, in Hindra Toko, the first-story building in western Nigeria.
One key success factor of David Hindra's ministry was his penchant for education. Consequently, the young ones at that time were made to attend classes after the Sunday service. This encouraged parents to enroll their children in St. David's Primary School, the first educational institution established by David Hindra. As the gospel continued to expand, Hindra saw the need to plant other churches in Ibadan and other parts of Yoruba land. This move produced offsprings from St. David's, namely St. Peter's Aremo, St. James's Okebola, Christ Church Makbo, St. Stephen's in Olende, St. Paul's Oduono, and many others.
Of course, the churches that I mentioned that were planted in Ibadan, later outside Ibadan. For instance, I served as a vicar of one of them at Yago. Yago is a village outside Ibadan.
Today, majority of these churches have become the seats of archdeaconry, while some have attained the revered position of cathedral, like St. David's Kudeti, the mother church. In 1867, Reverend David Hindra returned to England, handing over the mantle to Reverend Daniel Olubi, who worked as the only priest for Ibadan, and all its outstations for 22 years, from 1869 to 1891. Innumerable achievements were recorded during the tenure of Reverend Daniel Olubi that prompted the legendary Bishop Ajayi Crowther to pay a special visit to Ibadan for the first time in 1871. Remarkably, Reverend Daniel Olubi was called home by the Lord in 1912. Thereafter, Reverend A.B. Akinyele took over the mantle till 1916. In the annals of the history of St. David's Cathedral, several notable priests cannot but be registered as resident vicars and provosts, namely the Reverend J.M. Aribisala, 1917 to 1920, the Reverend Oloyede, 1921 to 22, Canon E.A. Doherty, 1922 to 27, the Reverend E.M. Alalade, 1927 to 1941, Canon E.A. Adigun, 1941 to 1963. It is pertinent to underscore the fact that it was during the tenure of Canon Adigun, a bona fide indigene of Kudeti, that St. David's Kudeti, Ibadan, clocked 100 years. Remarkably, the centenary anniversary was characterized by the completion and dedication of the present church building. Other priests who served after Canon Adigun were the Reverend D.B. Akinshola, 1964, Canon B.A. Falode, 1965 to 1969, Canon M.O. Adejumo, 1970 to 72, Venerable J.A. Lanrewaju, 1972, the Venerable S.A. Jinadu, 1973 to 75, Bishop S.O. Adeni, 1976 to 1981, the Reverend T.O. Obisheson, 1981, the Venerable M.O. Olupono, 1982 to 1984, the Reverend M.O. Akinyemi, 1984, the Venerable J.M.O. Ogundele, 1984 to 1990, the Venerable J.A. Lanrewaju, 1991 to 1993, the Venerable M.O. Akinyemi, 1993 to 1999, the Venerable Reverend S.O. Egbebumi, who was the first provost from 1999 to 2008, and now the very Reverend A.A. Alalade Anyila, the present provost.
By the grace of God, it gave back to virtually all the churches in Ibadan land, like Karimo, Mapo, Okebola, Nalende. All the people worshiping there now used to come to Kudeti to worship. You see, in fact, history had it that these people will come in the morning and they will come with their lunch, because after the service they will hang around for evening service. After the evening services, then they will be going back to their places. So with development, they started establishing Arima, Nalende, and so on and so forth.
At a point in time, the Ibadan Anglican Communion started to experience an astronomical growth, and this necessitated a restructuring of the diocese.
At the Lambeth Conference, I wouldn't use the forced, virtually, to come to Ibadan as bishop, to take over from Paul Lufose. I knew I was inheriting an impossible diocese. If small Elisha had been slashed into archdeaconries that are pastorate archdeaconries, that as I call them, and I told people then, oh yes, I'm coming to Ibadan, but I'm going to slash it into pieces. I couldn't see myself as father in God to people who don't know me at all. It hit me even in my days at Elisha. We came for the meeting of the Church of the Province of West Africa. And of course, if you are in the area where you are doing it on a Sunday, they will send you to churches around. And I was sent to St. Luke's here. St. Luke's I knew as all my years at Ibadan. And rather than ordinary service, I decided to change the service to Holy Communion. And there was a lot of joy, and people said for the first time they were receiving communion from the hands of a bishop. I said, man, here I lived, where I had belonged all these years, what was the matter? But I said, we have synod. I said, no, synod is for synod members, not for people who are not synod members. It's strengthening my reserve that I didn't know I was coming to Ibadan. That even where I was anywhere, I wouldn't be father in God, as they call bishops, not known to his children.
Consequently, for better monitoring, visitation, and efficient administration, 3 dioceses were carved out of the erstwhile Ibadan diocese. In this regard, Ibadan became a province with 3 dioceses: the Ibadan North Diocese with St. Peter's Aremo as the cathedral, Ibadan Diocese with St. James's as the cathedral, and Ibadan South Diocese with St. David's Kudeti as the cathedral. This new configuration has no doubt enhanced effective administration of the province. In the wake of this development, St. David's was once again catapulted to its leading light position. However, there was a task of who would become the maiden bishop of the new Ibadan South Diocese. By divine providence, the name Jacob Ajitomobi was strongly recommended and subsequently adopted and consecrated as the first bishop of the newly created Ibadan South Diocese of the Anglican Communion. Born in Ogbagi in Akoko Division of Ondo State, Right Reverend Dr. Jacob Ajitomobi's life and calling has been characterized by a passion and love to serve the Lord. Though born into a polygamous and unbelieving family, he met a good mentor in Mr. Guy Gaguilo as a student in Ajua Anglican Grammar School, Okeagbe, Ondo State. With Mr. Gaguilo's impactful mentorship, Jacob Ajitomobi's zeal and love for God progressively grew in leaps and bounds. This zeal and love for God grew even stronger after he left Ajua Anglican Grammar School for the School of Agriculture, Akure, where he got the nickname Brother Ajet.
Nobody will pass through that school and will not know Ajitomobi. Ajitomobi was always with his Bible. He was a strong member of the ESU, Scripture Union, during the time of Oye. We always refer to him as Brother Ajet. You see, one quality I see in him is that we said, look, this man, do not disturb us. He said, take Jesus into your hands. He was always persistent. Even if you abuse him, he will come back the next day to your hostel and say, I'm saying, take Jesus into your life. Then after splitting this diocese, the news just came into the air that one Ajitomobi has been elected as the bishop of Ibadan South Diocese. So we were wondering which Ajitomobi. You see, the one we schooled together many years ago. But when he now reported, it was a great reunion. We met and, old friends. We were very happy to meet. My wife also was a student at the School of Agric.
I was surprised because he was in SU, not in Anglican. So I did not even know the time he crossed to Anglican. So I was thinking, because he was an SU secretary also, so he was traveling with them. So I thought he has no church. So he was just a minister of God, or maybe he's going to establish his own church. But when he was elected as our bishop there, I did not even know that he was the one. Later, my husband told me, that is a jet. I said, at last. So yeah, this day is already fulfilled in his life.
Jacob Ajitomobi later attended Igbaja Seminary in Kwara State before proceeding to the famous London Bible College for a bachelor's degree in theology. Thereafter, he returned to Nigeria for his mandatory national youth service and was posted to Bendel, now Edo State. Eventually, he got married to the love of his life, Dorcas, and secured a teaching appointment at St. Margaret's Secondary School, Ilesha. Ironically, despite the strong desire to serve the Lord, Brother Ajet, as he was nicknamed at that time by his close associates, was very reluctant to embrace full-time ministry until he was convinced of God's calling beyond any reasonable doubt.
The Lord helped me to come back to Anglican Church, but for 4 years after my ordination, I was running away from Bishop Olajide, who wanted me to become full-time priest. I said, Iro, I wanted my freedom. I wanted to serve the Lord without payment. They could give me honorarium. At the end of the year, it was 500 naira. I had my own car. My wife had her own car. She became a nursing sister in Wesley Gate Hospital. Our family was growing. And if God called me afresh to be a full-time worker, I will obey him. But if you call me, whatever problem I faced, as a full-time priest, I will blame you. Baba Yafimile, he left me to take my decision on my own. Then I was invited to go and lead 1 week revival in an Anglican church in Benin, St. James's, Akpakpava. And every night, over 1,000 people. The theme was Galatians chapter 5, 22 to 25, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, and the others. On the 25th of July, 1987, while preparing my message for the evening, I stumbled on John chapter 21, 15 to 19. I will never forget the rebuke of Jesus on my life. Whether I loved him more than teaching, more than the higher pay, more than the plantain crisp I used to do, my plantain chips after school. I would go and look for plantain and, distribute. I was not waiting for 30 days make on pay. I won't wait for my salary. So I just decided God will have to speak to me. So John 21, 15 to 19 was the message. But having heard this now, I went back to him. Baba Mufeba Insoros, I wanted to speak to you. I've come back from Benin. Said, you can't see me now. I have a bishop's charge to write. After synod, you can see me. I said, Papa, if you don't listen to me now, I will change my mind about what I want to discuss with you. Come and see me 7 p.m. in the chapel. 7 p.m. Before then, I've written all the things that aggrieved me about being a bishop. You transfer without thinking about the wife's career. You didn't think about children's education. You didn't, all sorts of excuses. Baba, in humility, just said, don't worry. As a priest, you will look after your parish, but as a bishop, you have the panoramic view of where people should be, and you slot them into it for the work to move forward. I understood that. I kept it. Now God has called me. Whatever I will face in the ministry, I will obey him. I will know it's from him. He will take care of me.
Reverend Ajitomobi was recommended and subsequently appointed as a chaplain to Nigerian students in the United Kingdom. At the twilight of his assignment in London, it was crystal clear that his next port of call was Nigeria. And by the same divine providence that had dotted his life, Reverend Jacob Ajitomobi was consequently consecrated as the first bishop of Ibadan South Diocese. An assumption of office, Bishop Ajitomobi's remarkable interpersonal skills was brought to bear in generating brotherly love and harmony, as well as passion to serve the Lord among the clergy and the laity. From the cathedral at Kudeti to all the archdeaconries, including Oluyole, Makbo, Onipe, Irepo, Oduono, Ogoluwa, Onoara, Igbo Oloyin and Ibarapa, you could see a people not deterred by distance or any restraint to seek the Lord.
I could remember vividly those days when we were growing up. It used to be, business as usual. We can, easily predict what we're going to meet in the church. It's more of a stereotyped kind of worship within the Anglican communion. But we can see that lately things are fastly changing. We can see revival, in the Anglican setup. We can see much of evangelism, and we can see much of church planting. And in a nutshell, one can actually say the Anglican communion has grown beyond the Orthodox church it used to be known for in those days.
The grace of God upon the life of Bishop Ajitomobi ever since he was consecrated Bishop of Ibadan South Diocese has brought about tremendous developments in the diocese, both spiritual and infrastructural. Worthy of mention is the construction of Adigbite Hall that has become a source of revenue generation for the diocese. Also, the new Bishop's Chapel, the Gladys Hill Health Center, the Ambassador Luciano Diagnostic Center, the School for the Handicapped, the Diocesan Secondary School and Vocational Center, the Bishop's Court, and lots more.
Well, Jacob is a man with open mind. He's very open. When I say extrovert, so he says out his mind the way he sees things. He doesn't mix word when he wants to talk.
Well, the retiring bishop is more of a brother in Christ than a priest. He is more of a carer than an instructor. He is a welfare-based person, and is very, very selfless. He doesn't like protocol. Sometimes he wants to feel that you are like him and he's like you. So he wants to feel too free to come to your house, and that you should be too free to come to his house. Very open-minded.
When a man's life and service to God produces abundant good fruits, the beneficiaries of such blessings find it difficult to let go of him. But then, when the time to take a rest and move on to other assignments of God comes, God's will has to be obeyed. As Reverend Ajitomobi prepares for retirement soon, the bond and fatherly love he exuded over time in the Ibadan South Diocese makes it difficult for members to face this reality.
Daddy, I must say it's like so hard to let you go, because if we had the opportunity, would not want you to go. If we had the opportunity, we'll probably like want to, maneuver our way to like keep you. But then we do not have a choice. You have to leave, and then we want you to rest too. But even as you would leave, Daddy, we don't want you to leave us. We want you to continue your relationship with us, and we really, 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 really want to tell you that we'll miss you. Please, Daddy, don't leave us.
The story of St. David's Kudeti is a spectacular one. The story of Ibadan South Diocese is a memorable one. From generation to generation, it is a story of from glory to glory, and so it shall continue to be. St. David's Kudeti, Ibadan South Diocese, and the entire Anglican Communion shall remain a united family, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it, in Jesus' name.
On behalf of the Bishop Retirement Funding Raising Committee, congratulate the Right Reverend Dr. J. Ajitomobi on his achievement for the past 18 years as the first Lord Bishop of Ibadan South Diocese.
I congratulate him that God has helped him to paddle the canoe of Ibadan South to where it is now. To have worked there for this so many years, I think God has crowned his efforts with success.
We thank you, sir, for being a good leader, a caring father, and making sure we are taught what we are to know. We appreciate you. God bless you, sir.
To Reverend Jacob Ajitomobi, our father in the Lord, mentor, counselor, leader, and friend, we declare into your life abundant grace, more spiritual and physical strength, more love, joy, and victory. May you continually be cocooned under the shadow of God's mighty wings, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.